Today's daf yomi is Bava Basra Mem Gimel, but we're actually going to start on Mem Beis and Beis because we didn't do Mem Beis yet. Mem Beis and Beis. And today's daf yomi is dedicated for Shemir for the Chayalim Matzah for the Shvuyim Yeshua for Am Yisrael in this Eis Tzara. So the Gemara tells us on Mem Beis and Beis, Avua de Shmuel v'Levi Tanu. So Avua and Shmuel and Levi, when they learned our Mishnah had discussed those people who they're not able to establish a chazaka even though they're using the land because they have the expectation that they're going to be in the land. So our Mishnah listed a shutfim partners and umanim. These are craftsmen who work on the land. So Avud, Shmuel, and Levi, Tanu, they taught shutaf ein lo chazaka, that a person who's a partner does not establish a chazaka by being in the property, the kol shekain uman. So one of them taught that the father of Shmuel Levi taught that a partner does not establish a chazaka by being in the property, and for sure not a craftsman. Meaning a partner is a greater chiddush than a craftsman. So if you say a partner does not establish a chazaka, not every partner has the right to be in the other one's property. Maybe they split it in different way. So therefore, Abu Shmuel Levi said that if a partner doesn't establish a chazaka, then our Mishnah doesn't even have to talk about a craftsman. Whereas Shmuel Tani, Uman ein lo chazaka, aval shutaf yesh lo chazaka. Shmuel taught that a craftsman does not have a chazaka, but the partner actually does have a chazaka. The partner indeed does have a chazaka because of the fact that he's letting you use his portion of the property or the entire property for this amount of time. That proves that you relinquished your right to it. And Shmuel follows his logic. And Shmuel says that a partner can establish chazaka. Shmuel said a statement, and we're going to talk about this statement in the next the next daf or so. So Shmuel said, "Hashutfin machzikin zelzeh," that the partners are indeed able to establish al chazaka. Good morning, Jeff. We're in the middle of 42b. That Shmuel is saying that partners are able to establish a chazaka one on the other, meaning say if the partners are using the property that is capable of establishing a chazaka, can't say, "Oh, I let you there because you're my partner." No, because if you use it in this manner, it is capable of establishing a chazaka. Partners can testify about each other, and we're not going to say they're nogeya. They have negios. Negios is that they've a vested interest in it, so therefore they can't testify. And if a shomer and if a partner is watching his friend's property, he's considered to be a paid watchman. Therefore, he's responsible for geneva and aveda, theft and loss. So Ramile Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Yehuda. So this was the teaching that Shmuel made about the shutfin. These three teachings about the shutfin. So Rabbi Abba once saw Rabbi Yehuda b'marata debei Rav Zakkai. He saw him in the grave of Rav Zakkai. So what does he do when he sees him there? He says, "Mi amar Shmuel shutaf yesh lo chazaka." Does Shmuel really say this teaching that a partner is capable of establishing chazaka on another? Amar Shmuel shutaf ki yorber shustami. Didn't Shmuel say that that a shutaf, the partner, is considered to be like somebody who's yorig bereshus? He fits in the category of somebody who his friend gave him permission to work in his field, like a sharecropper. And so that's what Shmuel said. And if Shmuel gave that teaching, so isn't that the assumption, lavo memra, the shutafin chazaka, that the partner can establish a chazaka because he has a right to be in the property? Gemara says no. There's a distinction. When does he say he can establish a chazaka, and when does he say he's like a yored sheyesh lo reshus? So hadanachas lakua, hadanachas lapaga. Depends the manner in which he went in. One of the opinions that he can establish chazaka is where one of the opinions is either if he went totally in, or one is where he went partially in. And amri lo haigisa, amri lo haigisa, and some interpret it one way and some interpret it the other way, meaning to say that there's two different scenarios. One is where he was entirely in, and when the other partner was using the whole property for 3 years. One is where the partner was using half the property for 3 years. And there's a dispute. Some explain it that when he's using the whole property for 3 years, that's where he established a chazaka. And some say no, where he's using half the property for 3 years is where he established a chazaka. And it basically depends on what's the standard practice of partnerships in those days. Do you let the person use the whole of the property? Would that make you? Is that the atypical activity, or is using half the property is the atypical activity? What's going to be the nature of partnership in general? Do you want the immediate, the ongoing dividends, or do you want it after a few years? So that's the basic approach. Good morning, Hobbs. Shkoyach. Yes, Jeff, you had a question? So, okay, Ravina Amar. So Ravina says no. It gives a different explanation of the contradiction between Shmuel and the two possible contradictions. In Shmuel, in one case, Shmuel says we're in 42b, Hobbs, towards the bottom of the page. So, 42b. So in one case, why does he say that a shutaf is like a chazaka? In the other case, he says a shutaf has a right to be there. So Ravina says, Hava denachas l'kul. And in both cases, we're talking about where the partner is using the entirety of the property. It's talking about the size of the property. If it's a small property or if it's a large property. If the property is so large that you can divide it up, meaning to say it's bigger than 4 by 4, and then each one can use half of it. And so therefore, since one of them didn't divide it and he's using the whole thing, well, then it's clearly an indication that he's giving him the whole thing. And then when Shmuel says when Shmuel says the other approach, that's talking about a small property. A small property, the way they used it was that one used it for 3 years because you couldn't divide it. So one used it for 3 years and one used it for 3 years. So the fact that he used it for 3 years doesn't mean that he established chazaka. So then the Gemara says, Gufa Amar Shmuel Shutaf Ki Yorber Shustami. So now let's analyze the statement that Shmuel made. That a shutaf, that this partner is like somebody who entered into the property with permission. Gemara says, my kamashmon. What's he coming to tell us when he says the shutaf is allowed to be there? Ki Yorber Shustami. What's it coming to teach us? If he's telling us shutfus ein lo chazaka, that just because you're a shutaf you don't establish a chazaka. Well, if that's the case, lema shutaf ein lo chazaka. Let him say a partner doesn't have a chazaka. So Amar Rav Nachman, why does he have to say that a partner is allowed to go down with permission? So Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Barbua, Omar shenota b'shevach hamagia l'kasvayim b'sada she'ena asuyo lita kesada asuyo lita. Okay, so there's two aspects here. There's a field that's typically used to plant trees, and that's called a sada asuyo lita. It's a field that's typically used to plant trees. And then there's a field that's not typically used to plant trees. It's typically used for like grain or whatever, other stuff. So let's say a person, just in general, as a background, goes into a field and uses it without permission. So we say under those circumstances, if the person benefits, if Reuben goes into Shimon's field and just works the field even without Shimon's permission, if Reuben benefits Shimon, he's entitled to get some compensation. So if it was a field that was typically associated with planting, then he's entitled to the shefach for the value, the profits, even if it was magil klasfayim. Didn't say the stuff that was ready to be harvested when he went in there. The stuff was ready because he harvested it, so he's entitled to some of the profits. But if it was a field that was not typically used for planting, then he was not entitled to that. So therefore, what we're saying here is, says Rav Nachman, that if a person, this shutaf who has the law of a sharecropper who went in with permission, that he takes the shavach hamagil kasvayim, that he's entitled to the stuff that was there when he went in that was ready to be harvested, meaning to say the grapes and the dates. And even it's and even if it would be a case that it was a field that was not ready to be planted, he would look at it as though it was a sada suyolita, and then he's entitled to the profits and not just the expenses. And that's what Shmuel is saying, that the partner who works the field, that's what he's entitled to. He's entitled to compensation on that level. So now we say the next case is me'idin zelazeh, that the partners are people who testify against each other. they're allowed to testify against each other. So I asked the Gemara, why can they testify against each other? On top of 43a, Nogam Beidusan. These are people who are Nogea Beidusan. They have Negios. They have a vested interest in the case, and so meaning to say why? Why do they say that one can't testify against another? Because as long as they haven't divided up the partnership, somebody comes along and makes a claim against the field, both of them will lose. So therefore, he's testifying on his own behalf. So of course they can't testify about the other one. So the Gemara says, no, no, he writes, I withdraw my claim to this piece of property. The Gemara says, but can you really do that? Even if he writes that, what would it accomplish? The person says, I have nothing to do with this property, I'm not involved with this field, and my hand is removed from it. He hasn't said anything, meaning to say he's still involved. That's not, since he has a portion of the field, that's not going to be considered like a gift. And so therefore it's just like a prayer. Like, oh, I wish I didn't have to deal with this. So that's not going to be considered enough. So even if he writes it, that wouldn't be sufficient. So the Gemara says, no. No, they did a real kinyan, that the one partner gave to the other one, and so therefore he's really removed from it, so then he could testify. Gemara says, but that still shouldn't work. Even if he gives it over, if Reuben gives his portion of the field over to Shimon, it still wouldn't work. Why? Because what we're talking about a case here is when you do that, you're being mamido b'fnei b'chova, meaning to say that he's affecting his creditor. Let's say he has a creditor. Let's say Reuben is the one who gave his field to Shimon, but before Reuben gave his field to Shimon, he owed Levi $1,000. So now this creditor can come and collect his money from the field because this field was basically, there was a lien on this field before he gave it away. So if the case is, if somebody comes along and complains that this was my field, let's say Yehuda comes along and says this field that Reuben gave to Shimon was actually my field. Now somebody who comes along and will come and complain that this was my field. So now it's in Reuben's vested interest in saying that this field is not Yehuda's, that it was Shimon's, because otherwise how is he going to pay back his creditor? So Reuben has a vested interest in saying that field is Shimon's and not Yehuda's. So Gemara says, he's basically allowing the field to be collected by his creditor. So the Gemara says, no, it doesn't matter that he's saying that field is Shimon's. Why? Because Reuben guaranteed the property. So he said to Levi, who he owes money, listen, if Shimon can't pay you back, I'm paying you back. So it doesn't matter. He doesn't get anything out of that. So the Kibbutz Achrayas. So Gemara says Achrayas the man, guarantee for who? I mean, say, how did he accept this guarantee? If you want to say accept upon himself a guarantee that if someone will come randomly and take it by a claim that it says for sure it's better for him to testify because he's going to have to pay back. He's guaranteeing that if anybody comes along and tries to claim this field, it's his responsibility to make good on it. No, it means to say that he accepted upon himself a guarantee that if he owes the money, then he has to pay it back. And so therefore, that's all it's saying. And so therefore, it's obviously to his advantage to keep the field. That it doesn't matter if this field is with Shimon, because either way, he's going to have to pay it back. So now the Gemara says, but wait, we have another question. You wanted to suggest that if he just writes a note, I'm withdrawing from this property, that's sufficient. But wait, we have a problem with that. That shouldn't work because we have a brayso of Tanya b'nei ir shenignav sefer Torah shalahen. So let's say if people of a town that their Torah scroll was stolen. Ein danin b'dinei oso ha'ir. If you have a people whose Torah scroll was stolen, and now we want to adjudicate that Torah scroll, like people say Reuben stole our Torah, and all the people of Washington D.C. want to say Reuben stole our Torah. You can't have the judges from that town judging that case because they have vested interest in that Torah. And the people from the town can't testify because they have a vested interest. And if it's your case that you could just withdraw yourself from your ownership claim to it. Let two people withdraw from it and then judge the case, or they'll be the judges, depending how you look at it. First says no. That's a different case. Why? Shani Sefer Torah do a shmiya kai. A Torah scroll is meant to be heard, so even though they don't own it, those people will be hearing about the case. They'll be hearing about the Torah scroll, and so it's meaning to say, not hearing about the case, they'll be hearing the Torah. They're going to go to shul on Shabbos, and they'll hear the Torah. And so, therefore, since it's the case that they're going to go to shul on Shabbos and hear the Torah, even though they don't own it, they have a vested interest in making sure their town has a Torah. So Gemara says, well, another case to prove that you're wrong. Tashma Omer Tenu Mana of Ne'iri. Let's say a guy says, give money to the people of my town. Then the judges of that town are not able to judge a case. Then the judges of that case can't judge it. So, but why? If you're saying give money to the people of my town, the judges can't judge it. And they can't bring a proof. Again, why can't we just say the same case? Let these two people withdraw from it. Let them just say we've got nothing to do with this. Let them say we're not involved in our town, and we'll judge it. So Gemara says, no, Hachinam Sefer Torah. No, we're talking about a case where he says that he didn't say give money, he said give a Torah scroll to my town. He wants to make a donation of a Torah to the city. Another attempt, Tashma Omer Tnu Mana La Aniyah, give money to the poor people in my town. In Danim B'Dayane Oseh. So he says you can't judge it by the judges of that town. And the people of that town can't bring a proof. So we see from here. So this is Gemara just setting it up to bring another question again. But first the Gemara says for Tizbara, Aniyam Shakli Dayani Mitzli. Wait 1 second before we even get to our question that you can't remove yourself. Why is it even logical to say if the poor people are going to take it, why would all the judges be disqualified? Ela Amos, you read it as Ein Danim B'Dayane Aniyeh Oseh. The poor judges of that town can't judge it. Ve'emi V'in Rayame Aniyeh Oseh. And the poor people of that town can't bring a proof. But here we have our question. Let two of the poor people or two of the poor judges remove themselves and judge a case. Gemara says, no, we're saying here too, we're talking about a case where he says, give a gift of a Torah scroll to the town. Well, the Gemara says, well, if it's a Torah scroll, why does it say give the gift to the poor people of the town? Why are you calling it poor? If you're saying give a gift of a Torah, why does it say give a gift to the poor? Also for Torah aniyim. Everybody who doesn't have a Torah scroll is called poor. Anybody, you could have $1 billion. If you don't have a Torah scroll, you're called poor. Yesterday, I dealt with 4 Sifrei Torah. I picked up one for our yeshiva that we're going to be using. That's basically, I wrote a year ago, it's never been used. Then I picked up another one that I finished, that's going to Israel. Then I dropped off a third one to be checked, not a complete one, just a 40% of one. And then I ordered a 4th one to write. So anybody who doesn't have a Torah scroll is called poor. That's what the definition is. If you can have everything in your life, if you don't have a Torah scroll, you're poor. So the Bayasim, or alternatively, that means really give to actual poor people. And we're talking about a case, we're talking about poor people that the people of the city have to support, meaning to say that the wealthy people of the city have to support those poor people. And so therefore, that's why they're considered, the judges are considered to be nogea b'davar. They have negios because it's theirs. If you're going to give $1 million to the poor of the city, then all of a sudden everybody else can withdraw from their responsibility. So the Gemara says, what are we talking about? Ida kitzlu, if we're talking about a case that each person has to support to give to the people of the city. If that's the case, then then you should have 2 people pay what they have to pay, and then they'll be able to judge a case. So either kitzlu, the kitzlu b'ladaynu. So no, the low kitzlu. We're talking about a case where it wasn't established, and so therefore, since it wasn't established, how much they have to pay, you're going to pay depending upon what the needs are. And so therefore, if the needs are not great, you don't have to pay. You buy the same the kitzlu. Keeping the revach. No, even though everybody has to pay an amount, it's still better for you if there are no homeless people in the city. Even though you have a general fund for the poor and it's more money in it, it's still good for the judges of that town. Says the Gemara, "V'nasin shomrei sachar zelazeh." We become shomrei sachar the partners can become watchmen for each other. Gemara asks the question, am I? Why do we say they become shomer sachar for each other? Shemira b'baylam he. Isn't it the case that they're considered to be partner? Each partner is like a shomer sachar. They're like a paid watchman because you watch for me one day, I'll watch for you the other day. So they're being paid by the other person watching on their behalf. And if that's the case, it's a case of shemira b'baylam. And we learned that if somebody's watching something with the owner, he's going to be exempt, so he's not responsible. We learned this in Bamitzia, not Shoal. 95a, shemira b'baylam is potter. So Amar Papa, the Amar Shmorli Ayom, Ani Shmor Chol Machar. So he's saying they're not shmir b'baylam because say you watch for me today and I'll watch for you tomorrow. So yeah, they're shomer sachar, but they're not. The owner is not with him while he's watching. So the Gemara says, let's say if somebody sells a house or a movable to his friend, can he then testify to the purchaser about it? So let's say he sold him a house, he sold him a field. Now he's not allowed to testify. Oh, that Reuven sold the house to Shimon, and he sold him a field. He can't now come along and testify that's Shimon's house or that's Shimon's field. Why? Because if the field will be taken away from Shimon, or if the house will be taken away from Shimon, Shimon's going to come back and say to Reuven, "Now pay me for the house," because Reuven guaranteed it. But machalo para, machalo taliso made low out. But if he sold him a cow or sold him a coat, then Reuven can testify that that's Shimon. It's a movable object. Then Reuven is not guaranteeing it, and if Shimon loses it, he's out of luck. So the Gemara says, "Ma'ishna reisha, ma'ishna seifa." So the Gemara says, what's the distinction between real estate and movables? The main distinction is whether or not he accepted a guarantee on it or not. And so therefore, it should just be listed like that. So the Gemara explains, Amar Sheshus, Reisha, so hold on one second. Right. Since the basic distinction is whether he accepted a guarantee or not, and if that's the case, why do they list it as a field versus a cow? It should just say, did he accept a guarantee or not? If he accepted a guarantee, he can testify. If he didn't accept a guarantee, he can testify. So I'm Rav Sheshus, Reisha beruven shegazal sadam Shimon. So it's two different scenarios. The Reisha is talking about the first cause. It's talking about a Reuven, where what Reuven did is he stole a field from Shimon. And Levi. And after he stole the field from Shimon, he sold it to Levi. So basically, Reuven stole a field from Shimon, and then sold it to Levi. Va'asi Yehuda, and then Yehuda comes along, Vika Ma'arer. So we have four people involved. Reuven takes the field from Shimon, and then Reuven sells it to Levi, and then Yehuda comes along and says, wait, that field is mine. The low Ezel Shimon, Levi. So Shimon can come along now and testify that the field is Levi's. Again, you follow the four people. Reuven took it from Shimon, sold it to Levi. Shimon, and then Yehuda says the field is mine. Shimon can't say, oh, I testify that it's Levi's field. Why? The Nichule Dahadra, because he says, I want it to be in Levi's property, because then if it's in Levi's, and then I can prove that Reuven sold it to Levi, and Reuven stole it from me, then I have my path to recovery. So the Kivan the Asid so the Gemara says, but wait, that won't work. Kivan the Asid the Levi, if Shimon will come along and testify it's Levi's, then he's never going to be able to get away from him. So you're saying he can't testify it's Levi's because then he has a path to recovery, but once he testifies it's Levi's, he's out of luck himself. So Gemara says, no, he's not testifying for Levi's. That for sure he would be allowed to do, but rather what he's testifying is, he's saying Yadana Dahai Ara Delav Yehuda. He's saying, I'm just testifying it's not Yehuda's. So that we're not going to let him do because then he has a path to recovery of it. Ubahu's Lusa, the Gemara says, well, but still, Bahu's Lusa, the Kamapikle Milevi, Rivka Mihuda. Well, if you're saying that he can't testify, that the Gemara is just asking about the scenario. The same testimony that he would presumably bring to say it's not Levi's, Lifka Yehuda, let him use it to get rid of it from Judah, and so therefore he should be able to testify that it's Levi's. Why is he considering no Geb Eidos? If he has testimony, he should just bring it. So the Gemara says no. No, we're concerned he would be saying I'd rather it be in the property of Levi than Reuven because Levi's a weaker guy. It's easier for me to get the money back from him. So the Gemara says that's his logic. Rabbanan no, we're talking about a case that Shimon has his own witnesses and Judah has his own witnesses. So the rabbis will say under those circumstances, just leave it in the status quo. So if he's able to recover it from Levi, he'll get it. But if it was in possession of Judah, he wouldn't get it. So therefore the rabbi says no gad b'davar. The Gemara says, we'll stop. This is today's stuff, but let me just say a couple things about the schedule. First of all,